Leaders from the World Bank and International Monetary Fund are gathering in Washington for their spring meetings this week. The annual events attract a variety of world economic leaders, from bankers and corporate executives to ministers of finance and leading academics. David Lynch joins us now. He's a global economics correspondent for the Washington Post. David, thanks for being with us. First off, I wanted to ask, what's the focus of this year's meetings?
Well, it's going to be a couple of things. Really a question of balancing competing objectives. The finance ministers and central bank chiefs will be talking about how to continue the fight against inflation, some of the highest inflation in 40 years, and still protect the stability of the financial system. We've seen cracks in U.S. banking and European banking because of higher interest rates. They're going to want to try and figure out how to keep going forward to keep prices under control without breaking the financial system. They also have to talk about debt relief for poorer countries, and they have to talk about how to fund the fight against climate change at the same time that the developing world still has massive bills for education, health, and other development needs.
You mentioned inflation. What else has changed since last year's spring meeting, or is inflation really top priority right now?
Well, inflation's been part of it. If you go back about a year, that was really just a few weeks after the invasion of Ukraine, and there was a lot of concern at the time about the financial and economic fallout from that war, apart from the obvious battlefield consequences. And the war really disrupted global trade in food, fuel, and fertilizer, and that helped kick off or exacerbate the inflation problem. So the consequences of the war are clearer now. Inflation has come off the peak. It's not as bad as it was last summer, particularly here in the U.S., where it hit 9% last year. It's well down from that, but it still remains quite high relative to the Fed's 2% target. So there's a lot more work to go there. And again, the situation in the banking sector has raised concerns. That appears to have calmed down for the moment, but no one's entirely sure that there won't be additional problems in the months ahead.
Now, I want to move out more broadly. A lot of people aren't familiar with what the World Bank and the IMF actually do. What is their role in the global economy?
Yeah, well, these institutions were set up at the end of World War II. They were part of the Allied effort to design an international system that, in theory, would contribute to a more peaceful, stable world. And day to day, the IMF really is sort of the watchdog on the financial beat. It tries to make sure, tries to keep an eye on the financial system worldwide to make sure problems aren't cropping up. And when individual countries get into trouble, the IMF provides loans and financing to get them through the tough times. The World Bank is aimed more at fighting poverty by promoting development in the low-income countries, poorer parts of the world. They do that by providing loans to fund education, health, and such efforts. So they're two separate organizations. There is some overlap between them, and they're trying to figure out, frankly, how to remain relevant and active as the geopolitical situation changes and China exerts ever more influence globally.
David Lynch from the Washington Post, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Anytime.